Awesome. I hope you guys are able to hear me great. So let's get started with the warm up. So basically, the format of this is I quickly take out the top uh, AI news first, just to warm it up before we invite the speaker of the session, which is, of course, today's topic is around PRD to production. So a lot of things are happening in the AI world, right? So it's good to catch up. So I picked up top three things that I found really interesting. The number one is, of course, NVIDIA GTC is on. So NVIDIA has been pushing out a lot of stuff and announcing things from Blackwell to their Dynamo preference to a lot of different things. And the keynote of Jensen Huang also showed the Blue Robot with Disney and Google. So in case you are interested in learning more about that, there are a lot of virtual sessions which are happening. Do just Google NVIDIA GTC and go to their website and learn more. And there are a lot of exciting updates which are coming and the new frameworks which are coming over there. Then MCPs, it has been like this is something which is becoming a future. I came across a really great video. I closely worked with the creative team, and now there was one developer who built MCPs to link Claude to Blender. Now imagine building 3D stuff in Blender and how it has become now with all the Claude where you can prompt it and you can directly build 3D stuff in Blender. This used to take years of time to learn Blender, but now things are becoming much, much easier. So that's another interesting news that I found. And last but not the least is the Gemini 2.0 Flash native image integration. This has been phenomenal. This is still experimental, but if you go to the Google Creative AI Studio, not just the image generation that we've been looking at it, but image editing, how Google is fundamentally changing the image editing piece of it, where in this pictures you can see, can you add more flowers to the table? For this, you probably would use something like an image editing tool from Adobe or some other tool, but now you are able to do just with basic text prompts and so on. So things are changing quite rapidly, and we keep sharing few news articles as we start this session. So those are the top three news. And now I would like to pass it on to Sarvashish, or short, we call him SRV, to come online and start the session for the PRD to production. So SRV, are you there?
Yeah. Hi, Achal.
Awesome. Hi, SRV. So I will stop sharing my screen and you can take over.
Yeah, sure. So hello, everyone, and let's get started. So I'm going to share my screen, share my window. Yeah, I believe my screen is visible now. So yeah, so when Nitin told me that let's do a demo, like at FlytBase, we have been using lots of different AI tools since last few months or so. So typically we use tools like Perplexity when it comes to research related stuff. So recently we were doing some sort of a re-arc of our entire code base, and we used Perplexity as it was able to give us a very pinpointed state of the art technology, what's actually out there, what will work for us, what won't, with very little hallucination compared to, say, a model like OpenAI. So we use that a lot. Recently with Claude 3.7 Sonnet, we have seen a significant advancement even compared to 3.5 Sonnet, which was anyway quite good when it came to coding. So to write any coding snippets or coding context, we use Claude 3.7 a lot. For ID, we use Windsurf. We have observed that compared to Cursor, Windsurf's performance has been significantly better. It's able to index the code base and generate output, which is more relevant, and we would have to do less number of iterations. But a couple of weeks back, Claude released its Claude Code. So it's a command line tool via which you can generate code. And it has been really mind-blowing. The kind of features that we have been able to develop via Claude Code, and with a very little context, it's able to understand the existing code base and the new features that it needs to build, and it's able to do that to showcase just that the advancements in Claude Code that has come. I thought let's build some sort of a demo to showcase what can be done in probably just couple of hours of effort, which otherwise any developer would typically take probably even a week. So I was just jamming with an AI, what could be something like a powerful demo to showcase. And I thought that what every SaaS tool typically needs. Every SaaS tool would need some sort of a multi-tenant sort of a setup, um, multi-tenant sort of a setup wherein users are able to create tenants. They can create their own accounts, log in to the entire backend, and then access their own resources. So when it comes to setting up any sort of a SaaS tool, that is something like a very basic user management sort of a layer, which I was able to build with Claude. So I don't have a UI yet. All I have right now is just the entire backend stack. But more importantly, this is the entire Swagger spec file of what has been generated with the entire documentation. Till now, whatever code that I'll also show later on, everything that has been built is completely 100% by AI. I haven't had to write any piece of code till now. If at all I see any errors pop up in the console log or during the build phase, all of it was given back to Claude Code, and it was able to understand what's the problem, and it was able to solve it on its own. So this is the entire multi-tenant SaaS API sort of a Swagger spec file that it has created. As you can see, like it has created these tenant APIs. So create a tenant, get all tenants, get tenants by ID. There are these auth endpoints for login, logout, refresh token, register a new user within a tenant. It has created all these input parameters, the request body that it expects, typical responses. So all of it is created by Swagger, and it's not just the Swagger API spec file. It is actually something which is a working piece of code. So let me give you a brief of what the code looks like, so that you have a decent bit of an idea. So this is the Windsurf ID that we all use. So
we cannot see that screen. Windsurf ID.
oh, I'm sorry. Just a second. I believe my ID should be visible now.
Yes, we can see it now.
Right, so this is the Windsurf ID that we use. In Windsurf ID, there's this right side panel of Cascade, so wherein I can give certain commands for it to review and then generate the code. I also have Claude Code running in this terminal. So typically Claude Code is quite costly. So I use Claude Code to build big chunks of code, and for smaller pieces of functional logic, I use the Windsurf's Cascade interface. So as you can see,
someone has raised some question. Please see it.
yeah.
Yeah, hi. Where did you start? You are like in the middle of doing something. Like, where is the 0 point? It's not clear to me what has been done so far by whom.
Got it. Got it. So, so as I was saying, so when the entire idea of having this sort of a session came up, I thought let's build a demo app from scratch. So I jammed with Claude. I'll show it a bit later. I created the entire PRD of this entire product from scratch using Claude, the Claude desktop app or Claude web app. And then from the PRD, I created those prompts that I gave those prompts to Claude Code. So in this Windsurf ID. So everything, this entire code base, so this is the docs folder. I'll get into the docs folder a bit later. This is the entire Nest.js backend application that has been built. everything over here has been built by the AI. And what has been built? So in the source code, there are these tenant controllers and the guards and the user controllers and services that I demonstrated in a way in this entire spec file. So this is not just a dummy spec file. This this Swagger file is actually communicating with the backend. So the only problem is I couldn't demo it to you right away. I'll just show one. The only problem is I recently I just messed up just before the demo. I made a little bit of mistake, because of which right now it's throwing 500 error right now. Unfortunately, I was making a feature change, feature addition in this sort of an API, but as you can see, it's actually calling the actual controller endpoint, and it's unfortunately giving a 500 error right now.
Okay, so just so I understand, you are going to show at some point how you reached wherever you are, right?
Yes, yes. That's what I'll go right now. So that's the overall picture. So this entire, all the tenants and controllers and all these services were built by this AI. Now let me go back to where it all started, how it all started. So initially I was just doing, I just jammed with AI on, so I'll just show. So I created a basic concept. This entire prompt was generated via Claude in a different chat thread, but I kind of jammed with it that what probably could be a good demo to showcase for in a 30-minute sort of an event via Claude Code. So I gave this prompt. I also gave my own custom prompt that these are the certain workflows that I would also like to showcase. And then it generated a decent sort of a PRD for me to get started. I again iterated over the PRD, so I'll just skip to the point where the entire PRD got generated. In fact, let me move to the next thread. So now that I have the PRD with me, let me close this. So I generated the PRD while jamming with in the other thread. And then I asked that now that I have the PRD with me, I want to create some sort of a architecture workflow and the ADR documentation, as well as some sort of a pseudo code, so that I can get started by building this entire code base. So right now, all of this is being done on a Claude desktop. I have not yet gone into my Windsurf ID. I'll tell you when I move to my entire coding to the Windsurf ID. So all these architecture decision records. So all these architecture decision records was built with that. It also created some sort of a pseudo code for me so that I understand whether the AI has understood what are the things that it has captured from the PRD and what are the things that it has missed. And then later on, I jammed with it to add more context for the things that it missed. It also generated a decent workflow diagram for me, wherein it was able to understand how the entire workflow would look like. So a client request, tenant resolution middleware, and from that it would validate the JWT token. So it would also do a role-based access control. And based on that, it would go into the tenant-specific database, get the relevant resource for the user, and then give a response to the client. It also created a sort of a project structure for me, like what would be the source code folder, common module folders, the controllers and services, and so on and so forth. What I also did next was, this is something that we at FlytBase use as a docs folder. So when it comes to AI, especially building code or building repositories, which are built with AI first approach, we believe this sort of a docs folder is going to be quintessential, so that AI has the context not just from the code base, but a filtered sort of a context directly from the markdown files. So this common folder has a basic agentic workflows or the architecture, what are the coding best practices that it needs to follow, what is the folder structure that we typically follow in our code base. If it's a mono repo sort of a structure, or it's a single repo, if it's a React application, so how its folder structure should be. For a Nest or for a Python sort of a service, it would be different. Similarly, there is this module folder wherein from a feature perspective, so here where the PRDs are going to come, and the future versions of the PRDs are going to be updated in this sort of a folder. And then based on those PRDs, it would create some sort of a high level API endpoints and schemas and Swagger file for the AI to understand what needs to be built. And then this cluster folder effectively has the lower level actual implementation of what has been implemented in the code base. And then there are a few miscellaneous folders as well for the AI to go ahead and understand. So say, for example, in our main product, we use Apache Kafka and Apache Flink temporal for various different use cases. So for it to understand, say, which version of Flink we should use, because it's very finicky. And so versions is something which we have observed very important. So all sorts of guardrails that you want to set for the AI to not quote unquote hallucinate, all of that can be placed in this sort of a doc folder, and we have observed that we have much better control over the results that we observe with AI. So I gave this sort of a docs folder structure for it to then provide the new documentation, so the architecture document for this application and the requirement documents, API specs, and so on and so forth in this sort of a structure. And then let's move on. So it created all of that. I did a bit of back and forth over there. But the next prompt is the key magic prompt, which I again have observed seem to do a much better job, is this. So now that I have a decent set of basic documentation in place, PRDs, their basic API spec, and everything is there. Now I asked it to generate a layered prompt structure of around 5 to 10 prompts, which I will then copy and paste into Claude Code. So this is the moment wherein it would generate few prompts for me, and then I'll copy paste these prompts to my IDE, and I'll move everything to IDE, and I'll stop using Claude Desktop altogether. The idea is that typically when we are trying to build a big enough feature, just a single prompt typically does not give a good result. But if you have a layered sort of a prompt structure, so I'll also show the way it layered it. So typically it started with the setup of the basic project, the dependencies, packages on files, folder structures. Then it moved on to creating these basic database configurations. So it chose Postgres SQL and type ORM for database configuration. So it did the basic database schemas and everything, all of it. Then it went on to create the authentication and the authorization module of how it would look like, the entire login and user registration workflows. Then it requested to create this entire comprehensive tenant management sort of a module, wherein created this tenant creation and the domain mapping of each tenant to a user. So it created all of that. Then it requested to generate the API documentation. So I did till this point, I have given all those prompts, not for the, I couldn't complete for the rest of the prompts yet. But it generated the entire Swagger Open API documentation, all if there are any semantic versioning in API, so it captured all of that. Then it moved on to kind of clean up sort of steps, wherein if there are any performance optimizations that we should add in the code base, like caching. So if there are, so in the entire user API, if there's a lot of get calls, then like Redis, the cache would significantly boost the entire performance of the backend. So those are obvious things, but all of it, like if you see, I didn't give any such sort of a context to Claude, but it was able to understand all of it. It also generated the entire robust error handling and logging systems. Then it moved on to testing. So it created a basic level of test strategy, but I was not happy with it. Once I reach here, I would have gone into depths of creating more test cases for each and every controller, but on a holistic level, it was able to capture most of the services that it's going to build. Then it went on to security measures that when it comes to like logging and authentication authorization, security is paramount. So it also understood like OWASP's top 10 vulnerabilities and how one can protect against it. Then the eventual was the deployment and configuration. So that is the main game that I have observed, that creating these prompts and of course iterating over it. This is a demo app, so I didn't iterate too much on it. But if we iterate over here, then the job while writing this code base in IDs becomes a lot more simple. So I'll show.
SRV, just a time check. We have only 7 minutes left or so. So it will be good if you can wrap up in maybe another 2 minutes so that we have time for questions. There are a lot of questions and like people are curious about.
I think I can wrap it up. So this is the like in just couple of minutes. So this is the entire Claude Code interface, and within this interface, so I till now I was just vibe coding with it. So just a second. So this was the last prompt that I gave, like I want a comprehensive testing approach, and then it generated all the test plans for me. So it created these mock tenant, mock files and the test scripts that you can see in this entire test folder. And then I think Nitin, that's about it. The entire idea was how to generate these prompts, and once you have these prompts in place, it's more about copy pasting these prompts over here. I think I would like to just mention one interesting idea. So I'm assuming a lot of you guys already have idea about MCP servers that Claude as well as Windsurf as an ID supports. So I've observed that like these MCP servers help a lot, especially if I'm trying to say do some sort of an internet search. So a Brave search helps. This entire MCP tool helps a lot in doing some sort of internet search on the go. I also use this GitLab or GitHub MCP a lot, especially when it comes to committing a code or raising a PR or doing PR reviews via the AI. So I would just give a prompt like, say, for example, run git commit, and then separate the files into logical commits. And then more importantly, like use GitHub MCP against the main branch to create a pull request. So what it would do, it would actually understand the exact changes that has been made against the target branch, create a PR, which actually captures all of it. Typically, otherwise, developers in some sort of a laziness, they would not capture all the edits that have happened in this PR, especially if it's a big sort of a PR. So this is something which I have found it to be quite powerful with. And the other one is this prompt. So the idea is that build and run the code using Docker Compose command and find the errors and fix them. So typically when it comes to development, even though you give a prompt, there is a decent chance that it would generate some sort of an erroneous code in the first prompt itself. But if you give this sort of a prompt, it would build the code. If there are any runtime errors, it would identify those errors. It would fix them on its own. You don't have to keep copy pasting the error back into this entire Claude Code chat interface. It would understand the errors and then fix it proactively and keep doing that till it gets fixed. Same with runtime errors. So even it would understand the application logs, understand what the error is all about, and then fix it. So these are the two like quite a good productivity hack that we just found along with the MCP servers that I just wanted to share with you guys. Another one, which I don't unfortunately have a live demo with, is the entire browser MCP, wherein this entire Claude Code or Windsurf also gets the context of the front end console logs and application logs. So this is a pure backend application, but in case of a front end application, you can capture all of those console logs automatically and feed those console logs to your Cascade sort of an interface or Claude Code interface via the entire MCP server of browser agent. So that is also something which was very powerful for us. It got released just a couple of days back. But yeah, that's something which we have been using since last couple of days, and we see a lot of value. But I guess that's about it. It was a very short 30-minute sort of a call, so I couldn't show everything, but I hope I was able to capture the essence of how we use Claude Code and how do we control the entire AI to do what.
So SRB, let's quickly jump into questions. So
Yeah.
one question that a lot of people have asked is comparison with cursor.ai. So what are your views on how like Windsurf versus Cursor versus Claude Code?
So honestly, we used Cursor around in the month of December. Back then, we saw that Windsurf was able to understand the code, index the code quite better. We don't have to pass each and every file. So Windsurf is able to even understand what are the files that it needs to edit, even though the file is not opened in an editor, which Cursor used to need that back then. I understand that Cursor has also made a lot of updates since then. But like if I go through all those YouTube videos, especially in the recent 1 month or so, people are claiming that Windsurf is doing a lot more better than Cursor. But honestly, we don't use Cursor a lot. We just use that back in December. But we use Windsurf, and we have started using Claude Code since last 3 weeks or so when the Claude Code was launched. And I personally believe Claude Code is significantly ahead than Windsurf, especially with the 3.7 Sonnet model release. Claude Code is able to understand the big pieces, like if bigger changes, a lot more better. Windsurf is good in solving some smaller chunks, some smaller edits. Windsurf is typically better at it compared to Claude Code, plus from a costing sort of a standpoint. But when it comes to big edits, I have seen that Claude Code is able to understand the entire context of, even if the code base is quite big, it is able to understand that much better than Windsurf.
Okay, another question, SRV, is did Claude generate the Swagger API spec?
Yeah. So this was the prompt that I gave. So this was the prompt that I gave to Claude Code. And then Claude Code went into all the controller files, and then it generated the entire @API response structures, which Swagger can pick up. And these API header and API response structure, the Swagger can pick up and generate the Swagger spec file. So all of it, whatever that you see, you have seen here today, everything was done by Claude Code. Very few minor pieces were done by Windsurf. Like 0% of code was written by me.
Next question is around can we generate project other than Next.js using this?
This is Nest.js. It was the just backend, not the Next.js. But I have seen it was able to handle Python, TypeScript. We use typically these two languages, so I can only speak about that. So Python Flask or Fast API, it's able to handle very easily. Nest.js, the TypeScript, very easy. Express, very easy. Even the React front end, it's able to handle fine. We don't use Java a lot, so I can't comment on that.
Sorry, I'm driving, but can I add to this? Because
think I have something to contribute on where
Yeah,
the
yeah, go
Claude
ahead.
Code can be used. Sorry, I'm jumping in. People have raised their hands, but I'm driving and I'll be stopping in a minute. So I recently used it to migrate an entire .NET API app to Ruby, and it was 70% successful so far, including the databases, the schema, using Ruby conventions wherever applicable. So .NET uses Pascal case, but Ruby uses Snake case. So it clearly identified that and beautifully migrated my .NET API app to Ruby.
Yeah, honestly, Prashant,
So
I'm not
powerful.
surprised at all. I'm not surprised at all. I have seen it do wonders. Like I have seen, we are right now also building uh, an image analytics, a video analytics sort of a platform product. And the kind of vague prompts that I gave to Claude, and it was able to build the entire feature from scratch. It was kind of mind blowing.
Mind blowing, yes. And I got into Claude Code after reading your invite only, your this webinar that that's when I got to know that there is something called Claude Code 3 days back. And I started using it for that project that I was working on. And I thought, let's give it a try to migrate an entire thing and whether it could do it. It was amazing. I mean, 45 models that API has. So it was able to understand the context of all the models, all the foreign key constraints, all the indexes that were defined in .NET, all the service classes, data objects, the repository pattern that .NET uses versus a regular service objects in Ruby. It ignored that repository thing because it doesn't apply in Ruby and still was able to build almost similar API in Ruby. And this, I must have spent about $75 to do this on Claude because a lot of context to be processed. So, but $75 migrating, and I'm willing to spend, let's say, $100 more to get this done without developers being involved. Anytime worth it.
Yeah, definitely. Nitin, any other questions?
I checked. There are a few other questions, but I think nothing very critical. People had questions around comparison with GitHub Copilot, but I think you have already answered. Claude Code,
No.
I think.
GitHub Copilot, I didn't, but yeah, like if I can just spend one moment on that. So GitHub Copilot, we have observed that at least around a month ago, it was kind of lagging behind in terms of its power. GitHub Copilot, I observed that it was able to only handle the context window was quite less, and the edits that it could do was only for the files that are opened. And if you have a good huge code base which has like 50-60 microservices, then it was not able to do justice to that compared to Claude Code. Sorry, Nitin, I cut you.
No, that's fine. I think Lakshya has a question around using it with existing code base. How does it work with existing code base? Because you showed an example where you build everything from scratch. If we have something existing, how well does it work? Do you have any comments on that?
Right. So this was a demo application, but I'll show our existing code base as well.
Sorry to just interrupt you, sir. So I have seen like a lot of projects that are currently developing out. A lot of people are generating from the scratch, and that's worked beautifully on that. Sir. But major is like how it will work on the existing code base and how it will understand the context of the past. Like if I have worked around 1 year on that code base, will it be able to take all the context by its own, or I need to provide some context, or is it how it will work on that side?
So as you can, I hope my screen is visible. Can
Yes.
you guys see my code?
Yes, we can see it.
Yes.
So this is kind of our entire production code base. You can see this is our entire backend API. So these are the services that we have in our backend. Rest of these items are our entire front-end application, and we use both Windsurf as well as Claude Code heavily, even in this sort of an application which was built more than 3-4 years ago. So what we have observed that creating Windsurf rule files is something which is very important. Just check. So Apologies. So WinSurf has this concept of having these WinSurf rules files. So WinSurf rules files give a base structure to how to navigate this entire code base. But more importantly, what we saw is this having the docs folder structure. Uh, I have messed something in my repository. I need to reinitialize. But we have this entire the docs folder that I shared in the new code base. We also have the same docs folder in this age-old code base. We pre-populated the docs folder by adding the context of this entire code base inside the docs folder. Or at least what we have done is whenever developer say wants to edit a certain piece, so say for example they want to edit a certain video component, so what they would first do is they would ask say WinSurf to just generate that sort of a docs file for this entire video component. That anyway what helps is later on, like say a day later, you need to build a new feature on top of this video component. All you have to do is ask the AI to just go through the doc, then it will get the entire context and then build on top of it. The only
So,
problem that I
yeah.
see I have faced when it comes to such a huge repository is the context window. That is the
Yep.
only problem that I have seen. So for handling the context window aspect of it, you have to specifically ask that, say, we know, say for example, I'm working on say device management. So I'll just give it the context that only focus on this device management folder. Don't worry about the rest of the folders. And say in device management, I want to add a feature in this device actions controller. So I just ask it to create a certain feature, and then it was able to manage around the entire context window issue.
Great. I think thanks, SRV. We are already 9 minutes up. What we will do is we can take up follow-up questions on the Slack channel. Achal has already posted the link to the Slack channel, AI Hackers Collective. So please, feel free to move to that, all the discussion to that channel. I am sharing it on my screen as well. So you can so you can just join AI Hackers Collective. That is where we will be able to engage in further discussions, get into more details of various things. The purpose of this kind of session was to share the overall idea of what is now possible. All the details can then be shared in more like, or we can get into more details over the Slack channel. Other than this, please feel free to let us know what other things would you like to learn. I think there was a question around novice programmers. So if there are novice programmers who want to build applications without actually coding, not just coders. So this is something we shared in the last session. So last session we showed how our product designer is now able to build front-end applications, and we will do more sessions on how to use no-code tools, that is without knowing any coding. How can you build full stack applications today? And we have done that. Like in our team, we have people who are not programmers and who are already building business applications for what they need to get done, and we will be covering that in the future sessions of this series. So
my question was more for say new engineers who have recently got a degree or something, and they want to say join your team. Now the question is, what is their life going to be like in the presence of these AI tools?
So see, the thing is, AI tools are now like what computers used to be, or mobile phones used to be, or calculators used to be at some point in time. So before that, people used to do all calculations by hand, and then they started using calculators and later on computers. So now that is what AI tools will be, that all great programmers will be leveraging AI to do things at 100x or 1000x the speed, right? Of much better quality and much better speed, leveraging AI for whatever they do. So whether you are a new programmer or an experienced programmer, everybody needs to upskill themselves and learn how to leverage AI to do things better and faster.
No, I mean, it's not that. I get the general point. The thing is, I'm a prof. So one of my concerns is about students transitioning into this world. So my question was more along the lines of, do you have any experience of hiring, newbies and them adapting to this world?
So actually, see, it is actually easier for newbies to adapt to this world because they are not hardwired into any other world. It is harder for people who have already been in the industry for a longer period of time because they are already hardwired into not using these tools. And changing that wiring is a lot like unlearning and learning is a lot harder than just learning. That has been our experience.
Right. And in terms of the tools, I think whatever SRV shared, right, while looking to use Claude Code, Windsurf IDE, the new IDEs that have come out, it becomes like normal factor that they should start doing it in the course curriculum itself, because if they're still opening just simple Visual Studio and doing the code, that's not going to suffice in the industry, right? So whatever industry is using today, they would have to start picking that up.
No, but universities don't have money, no?
So the Llama and open source models are free. We have our lot of open source models running on our entire laptop or servers. So lot of open source stuff is available online where you don't have to spend a single dime. You can just host it on your laptop or a server.
Money-wise, it's $20, and you are getting a value which is worth thousands of dollars. Because
No, I understand. I mean, no, I understand.
But you can use DeepSeek R1, Deepscaler has been quite a rage in last 1 month, couple of weeks or so, just like Manus. And these are open source AI models which are like neck and neck with all those closed source models. So you can just
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah. Okay.
Let's move this discussion to Slack. It's already quite over time. So thanks everyone for joining, and we'll look forward to meeting you again next Thursday. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye bye.